Hi, this is Ramya Ravindran and welcome back to my channel Infinity for UPSC. So today we are going to cover the fourth chapter of medieval history, and that is the Mughal Empire. Ruling as large a territory as the Indian subcontinent with such a diversity of people and culture was an extremely difficult task for any ruler to accomplish. We know that some of the rulers have tried to capture many places and they wanted to form a pan-India empire. And Mughal Empire was one such empire, and we know that it was an extremely difficult task. We had already seen that the rulers of Delhi Sultanate, when they tried to capture Bengal and South India, these regions they became immediately after being annexed. And that is the reason the Delhi Sultanate they could not hold on to these distant places. But here we see that unlike the predecessors who could capture these places for only short duration of time, the Mughals they had created an empire and they had actually held on to these places. So we will see how could they do that. From the latter half of 16th century, that is after 1550 onwards, they expanded their kingdom from Agra and Delhi. Until in the 17th century, they controlled nearly all of the subcontinent. So that means within one century, they could expand their control from Agra and Delhi to almost entire subcontinent, that is entire Indian subcontinent. Then here we also see one more fact that they have mentioned from 1550 onwards. But the Mughal Empire that actually started from 1526. That is, Babur had captured Delhi in 1526. But he controlled only Agra and Delhi, and that was the case with Humayun as well. And this expansion started with the time of Akbar. And that is the reason they have mentioned latter half of 16th century. Then they imposed structures of administration and ideas of governance that outlasted their rule. We had already seen that most of the rulers they adopt the style of administration from one another. We had already seen that the Sur dynasty introduced an administration that borrowed elements from Alauddin Khilji. And the Sur dynasty's administration, this became a model for Akbar. So that means the rulers they copy the style of administration from one another. And here they are mentioning that the rulers who came after the Mughal emperors, they also tried to adapt the style of administration and the style of governance. And today the Prime Minister of India addresses the nation on Independence Day from the ramparts of Red Fort in Delhi, which was the residence of Mughal emperors. Now, it is not because the Mughals ruled from Delhi. There is a reason why Delhi was chosen as the capital by most of the rulers. The rulers who came before the Mughal emperors, and the rulers who came after the Mughal emperors, including the rulers of independent India. They all chose to rule from Delhi because Delhi is an important location. It was because of the geographical location of Delhi that everybody chose to rule from Delhi. Now, if you look at the conquerors of the medieval period, they all have entered India via the land route, that is, via this route or via this route. Here we have got water boundary, and it is little difficult to enter India and to attack India via the sea route. Most of the rulers have attacked India via the land route during the medieval India. They had either come from China or West Asia or Central Asia, and they had taken this route. So that means the people who are ruling in India, they will have to set up their capital somewhere here, so that they can take care of the boundary and stop the attackers from attacking India or from entering India. So that means they cannot have their capital here in the Deccan region or in the southern region. They will have to be somewhere here. So that is one reason. And the second reason is Once a place has become a capital, that place will become developed. That is, it will become a town and then later on a city. So that means you will get everything that is required for a town or for a good city in this place. And that is the reason the rulers who came later on, they also chose this region, that is Delhi. And that is the reason independent India also chose to rule from Delhi, and not because the Mughal emperors ruled from Delhi. We chose Delhi because Delhi is important geographically, it is equidistant from both the boundaries, and further Delhi was developed, it was a developed town and it has got all the facilities which a capital should have. So this is the image of Red Fort, it is in Delhi. Next, who were the Mughals? The Mughals were descendants of two great lineages of rulers. From their mother's side, they were descendants of Genghis Khan, the Mongol ruler who ruled over parts of China and Central Asia. So Genghis Khan, he was the Mongol ruler who ruled parts of China and Central Asia. So this was from the mother's side. From their father's side, they were the successors of Timur, the ruler of Iran, Iraq, and modern day Turkey. So Timur from their father's side and Genghis Khan from their mother's side. However, the Mughals did not like to be called Mughal or Mongol, and this has got two reasons. First, because Genghis Khan's memory was associated with the massacre of innumerable people. He was a very brutal leader and he had massacred innumerable people, and they did not like that fact, and that is the reason they did not want it to be associated with this name, that is Mughals. And second reason is linked with the Uzbeks, who were their Mongol competitors. So their competitor, that is the Uzbeks, even they were of Mongol origin. And because of these two reasons, they did not like to be associated with Mughal or Mongol. On the other hand, the Mughals were proud of their Timurid ancestry because the great ancestor had captured Delhi in 1398. So that means these Mughal rulers, they were proud of their Timurid lineage, and that is the reason they celebrated their genealogy pictorially. Each ruler getting a picture made of Timur and himself. So they all got their picture made with Timur. So this is a miniature painting which is dated from 1702 to 1712. And here we see Timur and his descendants. So Timur, he is in the center, and on his right is his son Miran Shah. So this is Miran Shah, the first Mughal emperor, Babur's great grandfather. So if this is Babur, this is his father, grandfather, great grandfather, and this is great grandfather. So this is Miran Shah and Timur is his father. So here we will have Timur. So that means Timur is the great grandfather of Babur. And then here we have got Abu Said. So Abu Said is Babur's grandfather. Then to the left of Timur are Sultan Muhammad Mirza, and Muhammad Mirza is Babur's great grandfather. Then Umar Sheikh, Babur's father. Then the Mughal emperors Babur, Akbar and Shah Jahan are the third, fourth and fifth individuals on the Timur's right. So that means this is Babur, Akbar and this is Shah Jahan. Then on his left in the same order we have got Humayun, then Jahangir, then Aurangzeb. So Humayun, Jahangir and Aurangzeb. Now this is the order. Babur, his father Umar Sheikh, Umar Sheikh's father Abu Said, Abu Said's father Muhammad Mirza, and then Muhammad Mirza's father is Miran Shah, and Miran Shah's father is Timur. So Timur, he had captured Delhi, and after Timur comes Babur. So after Timur, Babur enters India and he captures Delhi. Next is Mughal military campaigns. So here we will see the important military campaigns made by the important Mughal rulers, starting from Babur. Babur, the first Mughal emperor who ruled from 1526 to 1530. Note that he ruled only for 4 years from 1526 onwards. And this Babur, he had first occupied the throne of Fargana. Now this Fargana, it is in Uzbekistan, and this Babur, he was born in Uzbekistan and he had occupied the throne of Fargana in 1494 when he was only 12 years old. So he was very young when he had occupied the throne of Fargana. But he was forced to leave his ancestral throne due to the invasion of another Mongol group, that is the Uzbeks. We had already seen that the Uzbeks were of Mongol origin, and that is one of the reasons why these Mughals, they did not like to be associated with this name. So here we see that Babur had to flee Fargana because of the Uzbeks. After years of wandering, he seized Kabul in 1504. So that is in Afghanistan. And then in 1526, he defeated the Sultan of Delhi, that is Ibrahim Lodi, at Panipat and captured Delhi and Agra. So in 1526, he occupied Delhi by defeating Ibrahim Lodi at Panipat. This statement is very important. 1526 defeated Ibrahim Lodi at Panipat, and this was done by Babur. Looking at the major campaigns of the Mughals, we can conclude that the Afghans were an immediate threat to Mughal authority. Now he had captured Kabul in 1504, and that is the reason Afghans had also become an immediate threat to Mughal authority. So the Mughals had two threats. One was Uzbeks and second Afghans. The next is the warfare technology which was used by Babur. And it is said that Babur could attack and seize Delhi because of the technology that he had used. So here we get to see that cannons were an important addition in the 16th century warfare. Babur used them effectively in the first battle of Panipat. So these two that you see, these are the cannons. And we know that cannons were used even before Babur had entered India. So cannons were not new to India or the Indian battles. Then apart from cannons, he had used gunpowder technology as well. And this was brought to India for warfare in the 14th century. That means even before Babur had used, it was already used in India. Firearms were used for the first time in regions such as Gujarat, Malwa and Deccan, and was used by Babur in the early 16th century. So all these things which are mentioned here, these were not new to India. But it is possible that these were more modern than the previous technology. And that is the reason Babur could easily capture Delhi. So when it comes to Babur, you need to associate Babur with warfare technology. Cannons, gunpowder technology and firearms. And here this statement is important. It was used for the first time in regions such as Gujarat, Malwa and Deccan, and it was used by Babur. Now these are the important events of Babur's life. 1526, we know he defeated Ibrahim Lodi and his Afghan supporters at Panipat. 1527, he defeated the Rajput ruler, that is Rana Sangha, at Khanua. 1528, he defeated the Rajputs at Chanderi. So this is in order 26, 27, 28. 26, we know he defeated Ibrahim Lodi at Panipat. Then 27 and 28, he defeated Rajputs. Because we know that Rajputs were ruling the area around Delhi and Agra. And if some ruler wants to capture Delhi or the surrounding region, they will have to first fight with the Rajput rulers. So 27, he defeated Rana Sangha at Khanua. Then 28, the Rajputs at Chanderi. So all these names and these places are very important. Ibrahim Lodi, Panipat, Rana Sangha, Khanua, then 28, Chanderi. Then before his death, he had established control over Agra and Delhi. So Babur, what are the important facts? First you need to remember Fargana, then Uzbeks and Afghans were a threat. Then in 1526, he defeated Ibrahim Lodi at Panipat and captured Delhi and Agra, and that's how his rule started. Then you need to associate warfare technology with Babur. Then apart from Ibrahim Lodi, he defeated Rana Sangha at Khanua, then Rajputs at Chanderi, and the dates are in order 26, 27 and 28. Then after Babur, the next ruler to rule Delhi was Babur's son Humayun, and he had ruled from 1530 to 1540 and then again in 1555 to 1556. So Babur, he had ruled from 1526 to 1530, just for 4 years. Then Humayun, the dates are very easy to remember, 30 to 40, that is the round figure, 1530 to 1540. Then he comes back in 1555 and rules for 1 year. And we already know that in between this time period, that is for 15 years, Sur dynasty had ruled. We had seen that Shesha Sur from the Sur dynasty, he had defeated Humayun and he ruled from 1540 onwards. And the Sur dynasty, it ruled for 15 years, that is from 1540 to 1555. And then again Humayun comes back in 1555 and rules for 1 year. So this was already known to us in the 3rd chapter itself. Humayun divided his inheritance according to the will of his father. His brothers were each given a province. So that means Humayun did justice with his brothers. But still, one of his brother, that is Mirza Kamran, he was a problematic person and he had created hindrance to the rule of Humayun. The ambitions of his brother Mirza Kamran weakened Humayun's cause against Afghan competitors. We had already seen that Afghans and Uzbeks were a threat to the Mughal Emperor Babur, and we see that these people, that is the Afghans and Uzbeks, remain a threat to the later rulers as well, that is the rulers who came after Babur. Then apart from Mirza Kamran, that is his brother, Sher Khan defeated Humayun at Chausa in 1539 and again at Kannauj in 1540, forcing him to flee to Iran. So Sher Khan, he defeated Humayun at Chausa, important place, Chausa 1539, Kannauj 1540. So these two places and these two dates are very important, Chausa and Kannauj. And after this he had to flee to Iran. So in Iran, Humayun received help from Safavid Shah. Very important name. Humayun received help from Safavid Shah in Iran because he had fled to Iran. Then in 1555 he recaptured Delhi but died the next year after an accident. Humayun, he had actually fell from the staircase and that's how he died. So that was because of an accident, and you need to remember this fact because most of the emperors, they die in the battle. So they are either defeated or killed. But this is a very strange case. He died by falling from the staircase. So Humayun, he was not defeated in the battlefield. He died because of an accident. So Humayun, what are the important facts? First, you need to remember the date 1530 to 40, then 1555 to 1556, and then here he died because of the accident. Then important names are Mirza Kamran, who was his brother, then Sher Khan, who defeated him at Chausa in 1539, Kannauj in 1540. Then third name is Safavid Shah of Iran. He was the person who helped Humayun when he had fled to Iran. So these three names you need to associate with Humayun: Mirza Kamran, Sher Khan and Safavid Shah of Iran. Then after Humayun comes Akbar, and the date is 1556 to 1605. Very easy to remember because 1556 Humayun died and Akbar had to occupy the throne. So 1556 to 1605, Akbar, he had ruled for 50 years and 1605, this is a round figure. So Akbar, he ruled from 1556 for 50 long years till 1605. So this date should be by heart by now. Akbar was 13 years old when he became emperor. He had to become an emperor very soon in his life because his father had died and he had to occupy the throne. His reign can be divided into three periods. One is 1556 to 1570. During this time period, Akbar became independent of the regent Bairam Khan and the other members of his domestic staff. Now this is what is given in your textbook, but the case is actually Akbar was dependent on the regent Bairam Khan for the initial period. That is, from 1556 onwards, Akbar was totally dependent on the regent Bairam Khan. And Bairam Khan used to take all the decisions related to the kingdom and related to the empire. And Akbar was just a rubber stamp. So he used to follow the orders which were given by Bairam Khan and the other members of the domestic staff. But after a few years, he started taking independent decision. So within this time period itself, Akbar became independent, but not from 1556 onwards. So you need to remember this fact. Military campaigns were launched against the Suris and the other Afghans, against the neighboring kingdoms of Malwa and Gondwana, and then to suppress the revolt of his half-brother Mirza Hakim and Uzbeks. Now do not get confused when you see so many names. These are very easy to remember. Just pay attention to everything that I say. Military campaign was launched against Suris. We know that Suris had defeated Humayun and Humayun had recaptured Delhi from Suris. So Suris will try to recapture Delhi once again from the Mughals. So that means Akbar will have to fight with Suris. And these Suris, they were of Afghan origin. So that means he will have to fight against Suris and Afghans. So this became clear. Why Suris and Afghans? Then next is against the neighboring kingdoms of Malwa and Gondwana. We had seen that Babur, who was the first emperor, he could only capture Delhi and Agra. And Humayun, he had to fight battle and he could not rule smoothly, and that is the reason he could not expand the empire. But the expansion started with Akbar. Now when they are expanding, first they will try to capture the neighboring places. So the neighboring places of Malwa and Gondwana, these two were attacked first. And that is the reason this is the first phase wherein they are attacking the neighboring kingdom. So 1556 to 1570, they are attacking the nearby regions. So Malwa and Gondwana, this became clear. Then campaign to suppress the revolt of his half-brother Mirza Hakim. So this is one name that you need to associate with Akbar, his half-brother Mirza Hakim. Then next is campaign against Uzbek. I have told you Afghans and Uzbeks, they will remain problematic for most of the Mughal rulers. So campaign to suppress Suris, Afghans, his half-brother Mirza Hakim and Uzbeks. Then campaigns against neighboring kingdoms of Malwa and Gondwana. Then in 1568, the Sisodia capital of Chittor was seized, and in 1569, Ranthambore was seized. So again the dates are nearby, 68 and 69, Chittor and Ranthambore. Now if you look at the map, this is Delhi, this is Chittor and Ranthambore. But he chose to attack Malwa and Gondwana first. And that is because Chittor and Ranthambore, these were ruled by the Rajputs. And we had already seen in the third chapter, there also the rulers tried to capture the places which were around the region which was ruled by the Rajputs. And after capturing the surrounding places, they chose to attack the region which was ruled by Rajputs so that they can safely attack the Rajputs. And here also the ruler chose to attack Malwa and Gondwana first and then attack Chittor and Ranthambore. So among the three periods, the first period, which is from 1556 to 1570, he had to campaign against the enemies and attack the neighboring kingdoms of Malwa and Gondwana and Chittor and Ranthambore. So this was the first period. Then in the second period, that is from 1570 to 1585, he launches military campaign against Gujarat and in Bengal. Now Gujarat, this is the extreme west of Indian subcontinent, and Bengal, this is the extreme east. Now you need to note one more thing, that Bihar, Bengal and Orissa, all these were Bengal. Initially all these were Bengal, and later Bengal was divided into Bengal, Bihar and Orissa. So extreme west and extreme east was attacked. And in the third chapter of Delhi Sultanate, we had seen that it is a difficult place to control from Delhi. Bengal is a distant place and it is very difficult to control Bengal from Delhi. And that is the reason Akbar chose to attack Bengal and Gujarat in the second phase and not in the first phase. In the first phase, he chose to attack places which were near. These campaigns were complicated by the 1517 and 1580 revolt in support of Mirza Hakim. We know that Mirza Hakim is the half brother of Akbar and he was a problematic person for Akbar. So this is the second phase. Then in the third phase, that is 1585 to 1605, here Akbar expanded the empire. And during this period, campaigns were launched in the northwest. Kandahar was seized from Safavid, Kashmir was annexed, as also Kabul after the death of Mirza Hakim. So first phase, he is creating problem. Second phase, again he is creating problem. But by the third phase, he is dead. And because he is dead, Akbar seizes Kabul, which was ruled by Mirza Hakim. So he is attacking the northwest and seizing Kandahar, Kashmir and Kabul. Now when you see this, you should be able to recollect something. We know that Safavid was the person who had helped Humayun. When Humayun had to flee to Iran, he was helped in Iran by Safavid. So Safavid, he was the person who helped Humayun. But what is Akbar doing? Akbar, who is the son of Humayun, he is seizing Kandahar from Safavid. So a very ungrateful action by Akbar. Then apart from northwest, campaigns in Deccan also started. We know that Deccan is very far away from Delhi and most of the rulers, they choose not to attack Deccan and further south. But in the third phase of Akbar's rule, he chose to attack Deccan and Berar, Khandesh and parts of Ahmednagar were annexed. So all these are places in Deccan. Berar, Khandesh and parts of Ahmednagar. Ahmednagar was not annexed completely but just a part of Ahmednagar. Then in the last years of his reign, Akbar was distracted by the rebellion of Prince Salim, the future emperor Jahangir. So Salim and Jahangir both are one and the same, and Jahangir is the son of Akbar who had rebelled against his father. We see this throughout the history of Mughals that the son is rebelling against the father. This is seen throughout. So what are the important facts about Akbar? First is the timeline 1556 to 1605. Then this is divided into three periods. First is 1556 to 1570 and initially he was under the control of Regent Bairam Khan. Later on he became independent. Then he had to campaign against the enemies like Suris, Afghans, Uzbeks and his half brother Mirza Hakim. Then initial phase he attacked the neighboring kingdoms of Malwa and Gondwana. Then later in 1568 and 1569 he captured Chittor and Ranthambore respectively. So this was first phase. Then second phase 1570 to 1585. All are round figures so it is easy to remember. In this phase he had to campaign against Gujarat and Bengal. Then again revolt of Mirza Hakim who was his half brother. Then third phase, here he had actually expanded the empire to the northwest and seized Kandahar from Safavid. Then Kashmir was annexed. Kabul was annexed after the death of Mirza Hakim. Campaigns in Deccan, that is Berar, Khandesh and parts of Ahmednagar. Then his son, that is Salim or Jahangir, he rebels against his father. Now in this map, let us look at the places which were captured by Akbar. So first he attacked Malwa and Gondwana. Now you need to note one more thing. There is a difference between leading military campaign and seizing. Leading military campaign means he had attacked these places and it is not necessary that he could capture these places. See here we see military campaigns against Malwa and Gondwana. But when they say seized or annexed means they have actually captured the place. So Chittor and Ranthambore, these were actually annexed. Then later in the second phase, Gujarat and Bengal, these two places military campaigns were led. Then in the third phase, Kabul, Kandahar and Kashmir, these places were annexed. And in Deccan, Berar, Khandesh and Ahmednagar, these places were annexed. So third phase, every place that we see, those were annexed. But Malwa and Gondwana in the first phase, these were attacked, and Gujarat and Bengal in the second phase, even these were attacked. So I hope by now every fact about Akbar is very clear to you. Then next is Jahangir. We had seen Babur, then Humayun, then Akbar, now Jahangir. And Jahangir has got one more name, and that is Salim. So Prince Salim becomes Emperor Jahangir. And he rules from 1605, that is after the rule of Akbar ended in 1605, Jahangir takes over and he rules till 1627. So 1605 to 1627. The Sisodia ruler of Mewar, Amar Singh, accepted Mughal service. We had seen this Sisodia somewhere else. We had seen that the Sisodia capital of Chittor was captured by Akbar in 1568. So this is Akbar in 1568. Then during the time period of Akbar's son Jahangir, the Sisodia ruler of Mewar, Amar Singh, accepted Mughal service. Then all these statements which are marked in red, these are the failures of Jahangir, or these are the campaigns which were less successful. So less successful campaigns against Sikh, Ahoms and Ahmednagar followed. We know that Jahangir's relationship with Sikhs was not that good and his campaign against Sikhs was less successful. And the same goes for Ahoms and Ahmednagar as well. Ahoms are the people who live in Assam. So Sikh, Ahom and Ahmednagar. Then Prince Khurram, who is the future Emperor Shah Jahan. So Prince Khurram and Shah Jahan, they are one and the same. And like every other Mughal emperor, Jahangir's son also rebelled against him. So Shah Jahan rebelled against him, and the efforts of Noor Jahan, who was Jahangir's wife, to marginalize him were unsuccessful. That is, Jahangir's wife Noor Jahan tried to bring peace between Shah Jahan and Jahangir, but that was unsuccessful. So what are the important facts related to Jahangir? Timeline 1605 onwards, the time period when Akbar's rule ended, to 1627. Sisodia ruler of Mewar, Amar Singh, accepted his Mughal service. Less successful campaigns against Sikh, Ahom, Ahmednagar. Shah Jahan rebelled and his wife's name is Noor Jahan. Then next is Shah Jahan from 1627 to 1658. So that means for almost 31 years. Shah Jahan, he could rule for 31 years. 1627 to 1658. Campaigns continued in Deccan under Shah Jahan. Now Deccan, this place was attacked since the time of Akbar. We had seen that Akbar had captured parts of Ahmednagar. I'll show you. See, during the third phase of Akbar's rule, campaigns in Deccan started and Berar, Khandesh and parts of Ahmednagar, these were annexed. And all these are places in Deccan. Then after Akbar came Jahangir. And Jahangir also tried to campaign against Ahmednagar. We had seen that during the time period of Akbar, only parts of Ahmednagar were annexed. But the entire Ahmednagar was not annexed, and that is the reason Jahangir was campaigning against Ahmednagar during his time period. And this campaign was less successful. And after Jahangir came Shah Jahan, and he also continued in Deccan. So Deccan was under attack since Akbar, then Jahangir, and then under Shah Jahan's time period. Then the Afghan noble Khan Jahan Lodi rebelled and was defeated. Noble in the sense he is sitting within the court of Shah Jahan and he is working for Shah Jahan, but he rebelled and he was defeated by Shah Jahan. Campaigns were launched against Ahmednagar. Then the Bundelas were defeated and Orch seized. So here you can remember ABC. So Shah Jahan, ABC, A, Ahmednagar, B, Bundelas, and C, Orch. This is not C but C plus mirror image of C, that becomes O. So Orch. So ABC for Shah Jahan. Then in the northwest, the campaign to seize Balkh from the Uzbek was unsuccessful and Kandahar was lost to Safavid. So again the statement is in red, so that means this is the failure of Shah Jahan. So the attempt to seize Balkh from Uzbek was unsuccessful and Kandahar, it was lost to Safavid. Now once again you have to recollect about Safavid. Safavid, he is from Iran and he was a person who had helped Humayun when he fled to Iran. And after Humayun, when Akbar occupied the throne, he was ungrateful and he seized Kandahar from the Safavid. We had seen that Akbar had seized Kandahar from the Safavid. Now during the time period of Shah Jahan, he lost Kandahar to Safavid. So once again Safavid got Kandahar back. Then in 1632, Ahmednagar was finally annexed and Bijapur forces sued for peace. These two places, that is Ahmednagar and Bijapur, these are in Deccan. And when Ahmednagar was annexed, Bijapur, which is also in Deccan, tried to establish peace talk with Shah Jahan. Now how are you going to remember all these things? You need to remember that Shah Jahan, the famous lover who gave value for relationships, he was cheated by his own noble, that is Khan Jahan Lodi, but he was defeated. And after that, you need to remember that he had something to do with his enemy and his friend. So Uzbek, the enemy of Mughals, and Safavid, the friend of Mughals. And he lost Balkh to Uzbek, he lost Kandahar to Safavid. And you need to remember ABC, that is Ahmednagar was annexed, Bundelas were defeated, that is annexed, and Orch was seized, that is annexed. So ABC, all these were annexed. And once again here we get to see B and C. Okay, Uzbeks, Balkh, and Kandahar, Safavid. And once again this is not direct C but a version of C, that is O, and a strike here, so that becomes Q. But anyway, since the time of Akbar, we know that it was Kandahar which was taken away from Safavid. So B and C. So if you remember ABC and if you remember relationship with respect to Shah Jahan. So his own noble cheated him and he lost to his enemy and he lost to his friend. And then once again you need to remember AB here. That is when Ahmednagar was annexed, Bijapur tried to establish peace talk. So A and B. So Shah Jahan, relationship, and ABC. Then once again, like every Mughal emperor, even Shah Jahan's sons had conflict over succession. And Aurangzeb was victorious and his three brothers, including Dara Shikoh, was killed. Now Dara Shikoh, he is the eldest son of Shah Jahan and he was the preferred one. That is, Shah Jahan wanted Dara Shikoh to occupy the throne, and even the nobles in the court, they also wanted Dara Shikoh to occupy the throne. But Aurangzeb, he killed his brothers including Dara Shikoh and he occupied the throne. Now the reason for choosing Dara Shikoh over Aurangzeb was because Dara Shikoh was more wise and he was not a fanatic. Dara Shikoh had good relationship with people belonging to other religion as well, and he had respect for other religion as well. But that was not the case with Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb, he was a fanatic, he was a religious fanatic, and his behavior was very brutal when it comes to other religion. And that is the reason people did not wanted Aurangzeb to occupy the throne, because they knew that Aurangzeb is going to bring more enemies and more trouble for the empire. But unfortunately, it was Aurangzeb who occupied the throne. And let me also tell you that there was a group of people who wanted Aurangzeb to become the ruler. But majority of the nobles and the wise men, including Shah Jahan, wanted Dara Shikoh to become the ruler. And once Aurangzeb became the ruler, he imprisoned Shah Jahan for the rest of his life in Agra. So Shah Jahan, you can remember most of the points if you recollect two keywords. One is relationship, second is ABC. So his own noble rebelled against him, relationship with enemy, with friend, his own son imprisoned him. So all these are relationships. And ABC, Ahmednagar, Bundelas, Orch, Balkh, Kandahar, Ahmednagar, Bijapur. So this is how you can recollect every single point related to Shah Jahan. The next is Aurangzeb, and he ruled from 1658 to 1707. That is almost for 50 years. Like Akbar, even Aurangzeb could rule for almost 50 years, 1658 to 1707. In the northeast, the Ahoms were defeated in 1663 but rebelled again in 1680s. Now where have we seen about Ahoms? It was seen during the time of Jahangir. And let me tell you, Ahoms, like Jats and Rajputs, they have got very good fighting spirit. They are true fighters and they will not give up very easily. They prefer to die rather than being defeated. So that is the case of Ahoms. So the attempt by Jahangir was less successful. And after Jahangir came Shah Jahan. He did not do anything with respect to Ahoms because they are very strong. And after Shah Jahan came Aurangzeb. And Aurangzeb, I have told you that he is a religious fanatic. That means he is a very brutal ruler. And he brutally tried to suppress the Ahoms. And he was actually successful in defeating them. But Ahoms, I told you, they are true fighters and they rebelled again in 1680s. So first point, you need to remember Ahoms. Then second point, campaigns in the northwest against Yusufzai and the Sikhs were temporarily successful. So you need to associate Aurangzeb and Jahangir with each other. That is, whatever Jahangir tried to achieve, that was completed by Aurangzeb. First we saw about Ahoms, then we saw about Sikh. The attempts of Jahangir was less successful against Sikh, Ahom and Ahmednagar. But we see that Ahmednagar was captured by Shah Jahan and what was left? Sikhs and Ahoms. These two were left and these two were not touched upon by Shah Jahan. But when Aurangzeb, he is a brutal leader, so he defeated Ahoms temporarily because they rebelled once again. And the same goes for Sikhs as well because the campaign was temporarily successful. So the same story goes for Ahoms and Sikhs. When Jahangir tried to attack these two people, the campaign was less successful. And Aurangzeb, he tried to defeat these two, but the defeat was temporary because they rebelled once again. Then third, Mughal intervention in the succession and internal politics of Rathod Rajputs of Marwa led to rebellion. Then campaigns against Maratha chieftain Shivaji were initially successful, but Aurangzeb insulted Shivaji, who escaped from Agra, declared himself an independent king and resumed his campaigns against the Mughals. I've told you that Aurangzeb was not the preferred choice because he is a religious fanatic and he cannot have good relationship with other rulers. And as feared by the nobles, he had actually invited more enemies for the empire. Because his decision to intervene in the internal politics of Rajputs of Marwa led to a rebellion by Rajputs. And the same thing goes for Marathas as well because the campaign was successful. But since he insulted Shivaji, he declared himself independent and he started rebelling against Mughals. So that means he made Rajputs and Marathas his enemy. So these are the failures of Aurangzeb. Then as usual, Prince Akbar, who is the son of Aurangzeb, he rebelled but he received support from Marathas and the Deccan Sultanate. Deccan Sultanate in the sense, the kingdoms like Ahmednagar, Bijapur, all those are in the Deccan region. So the Marathas and Deccans, they helped Prince Akbar. And he finally fled to Safavid Iran. So once again Safavid Iran comes into picture. You need to remember all facts together. First, Humayun fled to Iran and he received help from Safavid. Second, Akbar, he was ungrateful and he annexed Kandahar from Safavid. Then third is Shah Jahan. I told you Shah Jahan, you need to remember ABC, and their C means Q, Kandahar. So Kandahar was lost and Safavids, they got back their Kandahar. Then after that, when Prince Akbar, when he wanted to flee from this place, he also went to Iran and he got help from Safavid. So Humayun, Akbar, Shah Jahan and Prince Akbar. All these have got relation with Safavid Iran. But then Prince Akbar's rebellion was not taken lightly by Aurangzeb. That is, after Akbar's rebellion, Aurangzeb sent armies against the Deccan Sultanates. Bijapur was annexed in 1685 and Golconda in 1687. Now Bijapur, where did we see this? I have told you Shah Jahan is ABC. When Ahmednagar was annexed, Bijapur, which is a neighboring kingdom, they tried to have peace talk with them and Bijapur was not annexed. So this is where we saw Shah Jahan's time period, Ahmednagar was annexed, but Bijapur, after seeing that Ahmednagar was annexed, they tried to have peace talk and Bijapur was not annexed. But during the time period of Aurangzeb, Bijapur was annexed. What was the reason? The rulers of Deccan Sultanate helped Prince Akbar, and that is the reason he annexed Bijapur, which was not annexed by Shah Jahan. And he also annexed Golconda. Where did we see this? Golconda we had seen during the time of Akbar. We had seen that the nearby kingdoms were attacked, that is Malwa and Golconda, these two places were attacked, and Chittor and Ranthambore, those two were annexed. Let us revise that once again. See here, the word used is military campaign. Military campaigns were launched against the neighboring kingdoms of Malwa and Gondwana. That means these two places were not annexed, but the military campaigns were launched. And finally, Gondwana was annexed during the time period of Aurangzeb. So Bijapur, which was not annexed by Shah Jahan, and Golconda, which was not annexed by Akbar. These two were annexed by Aurangzeb because of Prince Akbar. Then from 1698, Aurangzeb personally managed campaigns in the Deccan against the Marathas who started guerrilla warfare. These two had helped Prince Akbar, and that is the reason he personally managed the campaigns against Deccan and the Marathas. Aurangzeb also had to face the rebellion in North India of Sikh, Jat and Satnamis, and in the northeast of Ahoms and Deccan of Marathas. So that means people from all area rebelled. Sikh, Jat, Satnamis, Ahoms and Deccan. So here we have seen that all these were temporarily successful. Sikh, Ahoms, they were defeated for the time being. But when they got an opportunity, they rebelled once again. So Sikh, Ahoms, they rebelled, and Deccan, we know that Shivaji had rebelled. And along with Sikh, Ahoms and Deccans, the Jats and Satnamis of North, they also rebelled. So I have told you Aurangzeb, he could not have good relationship with people or with other rulers. So that is the reason he faced lot of rebellion from all sides. Then his death was also followed by succession conflict among his sons. So what are the important points? Ahoms and Sikhs, you need to remember, temporarily defeated, but they rebelled once again. And you need to remember this name, Yusuf Zai. So Aurangzeb, Yusuf Zai. Then he created problem and he created enemies because of his nature. He intervened in the internal politics of Rajput. He insulted Shivaji. And because Prince Akbar was helped by Marathas and Deccan Sultanate, he annexed Bijapur and Golconda and led campaigns in the Deccan. But he had to face rebellion from Sikhs, Jat, Satnami, Ahoms and Marathas. Now here we see that Bijapur and Golconda, these two are the places which were annexed by Aurangzeb. So Aurangzeb, again you can remember ABC. A is Aurangzeb, B is Bijapur and C is G, Golconda. Now with this map, we are done with the important military campaigns which were led by the important Mughal rulers. I am putting lot of effort to make this subject very easy for you. So please go through every single chapter that I have covered till now. Right from chapter 1 of standard 6 till chapter 4 of standard 7, and I will be continuing with the rest of the chapters